Hey guys, it's Rick from Vortex-RC. How you going? Welcome to the second video in the scratch build series that I'm putting together. You might remember in part one, I simply showed you how to cover a piece of foam board with packing tape. Now I hope you got the same result as me, because as far as I'm concerned, you just can't beat that outcome. Let's face it, we've got the colour scheme and the paint job all rolled into one, ready to go. Anyway, this is part two. I'm going to show you how we score the paper on the back of the foam board so that we can bend and fold the foam to create the leading edge of the wing. And as usual, another big shout out to Ed from Experimental Airlines. This is where I got all these techniques from. This is where I learned them from, and I'm simply passing them on to you, and I hope you enjoy the series. Stay tuned, coming up shortly. Okay guys, this is where I'm preparing the foam board sheets for their scoring. As you can see, I've done two sheets because I'm going to build two half wings and join them together for this build. You don't have to join two wings together, you can just build one wing. It depends on your own design. So I'm just giving them the final wipe down. As you can see, I made them identical, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, they look absolutely fantastic. Ready to go. Smooth, shiny, glossy, weatherproof finish. Can't beat it. Okay, so I'm going to turn one of them over now, and I'm going to start by preparing to do the score cut that I mentioned. So I'm going to measure the trailing edge of the wing, which for me is on the right hand side, and I'm coming in about an inch. So I'm measuring an inch up and down the foam board there. This will form the section of the rear end of the chord of the wing. Now you'll see, or you'll start to see what I mean as I continue to do this. So I'm preparing to make a score cut from top to bottom, an inch in from the edge, and I'm going to peel off the paper. This is so when I fold the foam board over to actually create the wing, I'm going to be gluing foam against foam instead of foam against paper. So I've got myself a right angle straight edge, which I'm aligning against the markers that I've just measured out. I'm drawing a line, so I know what to follow when I do the cut. It's my guide as well, my visual guide. I'm simply going to clamp each end. If you can get yourself a couple of these clamps from your local hardware store, you won't regret it. They're fantastic. Third and fourth pair of hands as far as I'm concerned. So here we go, I've got an X-Acto knife and I'm making a simple score cut on the top surface of the paper. I'm not going through to the foam. The idea here is not to cut the foam, only the surface of the paper. Now this is not ready form, or this is not the Dollar Tree foam board that you get in the US or the States. We don't get that here in Australia, so I'm using the Quill foam board, and the paper does not peel off as simple as the Dollar Tree foam board, but with a little care and attention to detail, it does peel and it does work, as you're about to see. So you make the score cut, you only go through the paper, you don't go through to the foam, and then you gently peel off the paper like so. So the first part done. loosen the clamps, remove them, take away the straight edge and make my next measurement further up the board. Now, because I'm making a 5-inch chord for my wing, I'm measuring 5 inches from the edge of the foam board. So that new alignment cut that I'm about to make, which is where my straight edge is now, that's where the fold will begin for the leading edge of the wing. So the flat surface of the wing, you keep the paper, you don't peel that off. It also gives the wing extra strength. So I've made my measurements. I'm using my right angle straight edge to draw the line. I'm going to clamp it in place like I did last time, and then I'm going to get the X-Acto knife or any sharp Stanley type of knife, and I'm going to make another score cut. Just cut the paper only. We're not cutting the foam. It's important to realize that. Must continue to re-emphasize, we are not cutting the foam, only the paper. Okay, so my measurements are all good. I've got my knife and I simply make a surface cut on top of the paper. Now you may need to go up and down once or twice or 3 times to make sure and double check the edge. We're just scoring the paper. Now with a little attention to detail, you can do this, anyone can do this. And if you happen to make a mistake and you go in a little bit, a couple of mils, it's no major drama. You haven't wasted the piece of foam. The packing tape behind it will keep it all intact. So I've scored that side. I'm going to undo the clamps and prepare to peel the paper. Now you can peel the paper right off from that last score cut. You don't have to do this 3rd measurement that I'm doing. See, I didn't want to waste the foam and have a quarter of it left over with no paper backing on it. So I decided to keep a section with paper on both sides, and that's why I'm making this 3rd cut at that point. As I said, you don't have to do this 3rd cut. You can peel the paper right off to the edge. So here I am now. I'm starting to peel the paper. It doesn't just come off as simply as the Dollar Tree foam board stuff. This is different. The paper is a little bit thicker, I have to say, and it's probably glued down a little bit more firmly. But this is not a race. If you take your time, make the proper score cut, gently peel like I'm doing, follow the contour of the foam, a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, a little bit on the left again, as you'll see what I mean. Roll it, pull it gently. It does come off and it creates no other damage in the process. Now Ed, I have to say, from Experimental Airlines, did mention to try and avoid not using this type of foam with this type of backing paper. But I'm here to show you that it does work, and I have built with it, as you saw with my swordfish, and as you can see with this particular build I'm helping you with now. It doesn't just tear off, but it does tear off. Just be careful. There you go. Okay, removing the clamps, removing the straight edge, and I'm getting ready for my first bend and fold. So that blue section at the back is the bottom of the wing. And where I've placed the straight edge will form the leading edge of the wing, which I'm about to show you now. I'm folding the foam board right over to create the leading edge of the wing. It's going to be a nice smooth curve. Just gently bend it over using the straight edge. Apply some pressure with your hand. Nothing's going to break, nothing's going to crack. When I started doing this, I thought I was going to break and snap everything, but it doesn't actually happen that way. You'll be surprised how simple, smooth and easy this process is. Okay, so I've done as much as I can by hand using that straight edge. What I'm going to do now, if you don't have a second pair of hands, is use the actual straight edge, and I'm going to place it at the front on top of the packing tape section, and I'm going to evenly apply pressure across the entire wing span and push down on the fold. Now, this helps to create the bend, and it helps to fatigue the foam to keep the bend in place without breaking or snapping or cracking anything, as you can see. There you have it. That's the first wing. Done. I've turned it over. As you can see, that's the bottom of the wing. Different colour. That's where the ailerons will start from after I've glued everything down. Okay, so now we're going to do the second piece. It's a simple repeat of what we just did with the first piece. So I'm coming in approximately 1 inch on the trailing edge. That's where the ailerons will be. And I'm doing that so that when you fold the foam board over, like I did with the first sheet, it will be foam gluing against foam, not foam gluing against the paper. So I've made my first measurements. As with the first piece, I've got my straight edge in place, and I'm going to score the top of the paper only. We're not cutting right through. We're not even cutting the foam if we can avoid it. Now, if you happen to go down 1 millimeter or 2, it's no big deal. It's not a deal breaker, but you'll get better and better at this as you continue to do more and more of these. It's not a race, remember guys. Attention to detail is the key. And there you go. The paper is peeling just as we expect it should. Gently does it. It's not a race, don't have to hurry. Now I'm going to make the second score cut. 5 inches in, which is the cord length for this wing. It has to match the same dimensions of the first wing half that we created. So 5 inches in, use the straight edge to make the alignment, to make the measurement, clamp it in place, and make the cut with your knife. So I'm just making some final measurements here to make sure it's correct. Putting those cute little portable clamps in place. Best thing I ever bought, I have to say. 3rd and 4th pair of hands, they're fantastic. Okay, so now with the knife we're going to make that score cut once again. Only cutting through the paper. Now you can adjust the knife blade so that it only sticks out enough to cut through the paper while it's resting on the edge, the straight edge. Or you can just go gently across 2 and 3 and 4 times until you're satisfied that you've gone through the paper only. Removing the clamps, removing the straight edge, and once again I'm going to make that 3rd cut just like I did with the first one, bringing back the first foam board piece and just making some measurements to make sure everything is the same with the first and second wing half. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to make that third cut. You can peel the paper right away from the second cut to the edge of the foam board. But I like to keep my remaining piece of foam board, which is a scrap piece, but it can be used for other things like the wing, the tail. I like to keep it with the paper backing on. And that's why I make that third cut. So I've got the straight edge in place, I've clamped it down, I've made the measurement so it matches the first wing, and here I go with the score cut. Easy does it, gently does it. Going from the other side, just to make sure you make an even cut along the entire paper. That's it, just checking along the way. And I'm pretty much ready to remove the paper now, as you'll see. So, remove the clamps. Start peeling the paper off the foam board face. Now this is a big area, so once again it doesn't just automatically peel off. It's not the Dollar Tree foam board. We don't get that here in Australia. I just have to re-emphasize that again. But the foam board we do use with the paper is adequate. In fact, I think it's actually quite stronger than the Dollar Tree foam board because of this paper. Now you can build these things with and without the paper-based foam board. You can get Depron, you can buy a foam board that has no paper. You can still cover it with packing tape. Yeah, look, the options are there. And you can experiment for yourselves and find out what's more suitable for yourselves. It also depends on the design of the plane you're making. Now the paper does add a little extra weight. It also adds a little extra strength. But as you can see, it does peel off. And with attention to detail, with the right score cuts, this is very achievable. So just making an additional score cut where the paper perhaps wasn't cut all the way through, which may have prevented me from peeling off the paper properly. But as you can see, once that's done, it all starts to happen nicely. So just peeling the rest of that off now. We're closing in on the edge of the foam board. We're nearly done with this second wing half. Easy does it, gently does it, and you can achieve the exact same result. Here we go. Peel off the remaining piece now. The adhesive on this foam board is a little bit stronger than the other types, especially from the Dollar Tree foam board range of foam. It's definitely not the same. But as you can see, it is peelable, it does come off. I've built a plane or two with it and I will continue to use it. I like it. Okay, so I've done the second wing. Now we're going to use the straight edge. We're going to position it at the end of the second score cut there, which is the 5-inch chord mark of the wing. which forms the leading edge of the wing as we fold the foam board piece right over, like so. So just realigning the straight edge once again, and I'm going to bend the foam board piece over and hold it in place, which will help fatigue the foam and create the bend with no splitting, with no cracking, with no breaking. That's the wonderful thing about this whole step. Nothing breaks, nothing splits, even though you think it's going to. Everything just bends and folds nicely. Now I'm going to use the straight edge across the outside of the wing and apply even pressure to bend and fatigue the fold and the bend right over. There we have it. That's the leading edge of the second wing.